Because I had walked out on my dream, my plan, I had no idea what I was going to do now. I was so hungry, tired, and hot in the LA sun and still seething at Hefner. I had no idea what to do next. Then I remembered Chansky, my friend since I was 11. He told me he would be at SIR Studios. I had no idea where that was, but figured I should go there. I wasn't about to go home to Boston. I found SIR and pulled into the lot. The valet said, "You can't leave your car here." I said, "Oh, I'm leaving my car here." Remember, I was dressed in black leather head to toe. It was easily 110 degrees in LA. I started walking down this massive breezeway towards these giant semi-truck doors. I heard music playing everywhere, Frank Zappa music, and I gravitated to this giant door. On the door was a sign that read, "If you value your life, then do not open this door." I hesitated for a minute, maybe not a minute, more like 30 seconds. I said to myself, "That's Frank." I pushed the door open, and the giant semi-door started going up. Oh shit. Suddenly, all the semi-doors started going up. I realized why the sign was there. The giant doors went up, and there was Frank and the band. They stopped playing. Frank looked at me and said, "Dale, what are you doing here?" I said, "I heard your music and I had to open the door." He laughed, then said, "You came here from Boston?" He remembered me. He then said, "Come in." He took me by the shoulders and kissed me on the forehead. I then started to explain how I had driven cross-country to meet Hefner and how I just walked out on Hef and that I was hungry, out of money, and my car was on E. I had nowhere to go. I showed him my Playboy photo. I said, "I have no job and no idea what to do now." Without missing a beat, he said, "This is my drummer, Terry Bozzio. This is Patrick O'Hearn on bass. And this is Eddie Jobson." They all said hi. Frank said, "I've got a job for you. You're going to be Mary on my new album, Joe's Garage. You start tomorrow, $500 a week, dental and health insurance." "Okay," I said. "Frank, I can't sing. I came to Hollywood to be a movie star." Frank burst out laughing. This laugh that he laughed carried me for 10 years. He then said, "When you're done singing with me, you'll be a movie star next. With that voice, you'll be a household word." When he said that to me, he got me. I was in. He told me, "Terry will take you and feed you and put gas in your car. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., you meet us at the recording studio. You'll be Mary, okay?" "Okay, Frank, okay." I slept with Terry Bozzio on that first night. It seemed like the right thing to do at that moment. He was kind, but at first, it was nothing serious. The next morning, February 11th, we went in and recorded Joe's Garage, Acts 1, 2, and 3. I was the voice of Mary. I was now part of Zappa's universe, not knowing that would last till 1992 when I played with Zappa's universe in New York City. I was adjusting to my new life in Los Angeles. Away from the music, I worked as a model in several men's magazines. I posed nude for Hustler and OUI. I was topless on the cover of Photo magazine for Italia. I did some Fiorucci ads. I did an ad for some sort of bust enlargement. I had photos shot by the great rock and roll photographer Moshe Bracha. The ironic part was Moshe shot the cover of Boz Scaggs' album, Silk Degrees. That was the only tape I had with me during my drive across the country. I loved that image of Boz on the bench. Hustler put me on the cover twice. Everything I did in the photo shoots was to get people's attention, ultimately for myself, for Dale. I wasn't thinking of how it would affect anyone. Each shoot was a step forward to me becoming a movie star. Even though I had recorded with Zappa, my plan was still to be a movie star. There was no room in my head, my heart, or myself to share or care. I didn't worry or care about being nude in the magazines. I wasn't going to be Miss America. I was not going to be the good girl. I had not a care about the moral standards of the day. I didn't have barriers or filters. Still don't. I also felt very beautiful naked. I had no qualms about being naked, no qualms about being myself. Even though I had had my falling out with Hef, I was still signed to the Playboy modeling agency. They would send me out on all these modeling shoots, even though Hefner didn't take me in at the mansion. Anything that came my way, I said, why not? The modeling agency would also get me invited to parties and events to be seen, maybe have my photo taken with a movie star. If it would help my career, I was all about it. I had arrived in Hollywood. My vision of Hollywood before I arrived was that the stars would be walking down every street. I thought I would bump into Al Pacino and remind him of the time he came by European Spa and had me give the $100 tip to the waitress next door. My ideals were so movie star. I thought the stars were walking around the sparkly streets of Hollywood in glamorous outfits. I thought the lights were always on and the music was always playing. Then I came here and it was so quiet. Nothing. Everything was beige with palm trees. It was a bunch of nothing. No movie stars. There was nobody even walking anywhere. It was totally blank. I couldn't even find nightlife. It was all behind closed doors. Everything was so private. I wondered to myself, where are all the lights? Where is the glamour? I guess the vision I had of Hollywood was all in my mind. At least there were stars in the concrete of Hollywood Boulevard. Terry and I were dating on and off. We didn't live together for the first month. I spent a lot of time staying at my pal Greg Chansky's place. His couch was my home away from home. In that time, I met my first ever real star, Henry Winkler. People today know him for his work on the TV show Barry. But back then he was the Fonz, star of the most popular sitcom of the time, Happy Days. He had his own doll, lunchbox, and coloring book. We met at a party at a backgammon club of all places. People were sitting around playing at tables near a bar and a dance floor. There were so many movie stars there. I saw Henry. He saw me and asked me to dance. We danced. We ended up at his house. We had an on and off love affair. In the weeks that followed, at first I thought I was in love with Henry. I soon realized I wasn't really in love with him. We were together because he was cool. Cool with the leather jacket of life. He was kind and cool. He had the same car as Terry, an Audi 4-door. Henry's was blue, Terry's was black. I would be at Chansky's house and hear the Audi roll into the driveway. I would make Chansky run to the window to see if it was blue or black. If it were blue, he'd say, "It's okay. It's the Winkler. It's the Wink." Terry and Henry didn't know about each other. Eventually, I faded out on Henry. He never heard from me again because I had a traumatic injury when I fell 40 feet out of a window. I have no idea what he thought. I never saw him again. I wonder if he ever knew who I became or wondered where I went. I finally moved in with Terry full time because Frank told me to. It was okay then to move in with some new fling. We were having fun, nothing too serious. Over the next few months, though, a bond developed between Terry and me. Were we falling in love? Maybe. Looking back, I can say Terry loved me with all his heart. Sadly, for him, I loved him with about half of my heart. Our relationship, and later our marriage, was very superficial. Frank's band was playing at the Aladdin Casino and Hotel in Las Vegas. I was Terry's girlfriend, so I was invited along on the tour. We took a tour bus from LA to Vegas. We checked into the Aladdin and it was fantastic. The band had an entire floor to ourselves. Terry and I had our own room. The tour manager was Ron Nahoda, a charming and cool Italian guy who had previously worked with Frank Sinatra. As the band played the concert in the showroom at the Aladdin Theater that night, I went about my regular routine of hanging out at the soundboard with Davy Moyer, the sound man. I stood next to him and lit up a joint. Davy started saying, "Oh no," repeatedly. Before I could say anything, security swept in and grabbed me by the neck and threw me out the side door. I tried to tell them, "I'm with the band." They didn't care who I was with. They took my pocketbook, they took my pot, and threw me out the side door into the pouring rain. I was outside getting soaked in my t-shirt and jeans. I only had a couple of quarters in my pockets, that's all. I went across the street to another casino and I put the 2 quarters into a slot machine. And I won. $50 right there. I took the money and stuffed it in my jeans pockets and I just sat down on the stairs. I sat there wondering what I was going to do. Is anyone going to look for me? Is Terry going to find me over here? I sat there for a long time, wet and looking hopeless. Terry came bursting through the doors, yelling, "What are you doing? You're going to get us all fired. I told you not to smoke pot." I apologized. Terry told me the cops were going to arrest me, but Ron Nahoda had smoothed out the situation. "Come on, we've got to get back to the Aladdin," he commanded. We got back to the hotel and he was mad at me. We finally went to sleep. Not much was said. I used to read Freud to try and figure Terry Bozzio out. He was so complicated. His life was packed with innuendos. At 4 a.m., there was a pounding on the door. I got up and saw it was Patrick O'Hearn, Zappa's bass player who would eventually be my bass player in Missing Persons. He looked freaked out. "What's going on, Patrick?" He was frantic. "Wake up, Terry. Wake up, Terry." I asked him what was going on. Then Patrick said, "Ron Nahoda committed suicide. He offed himself in the bathtub." What? I went down the hall with Terry and Patrick to Ron's room. The door was open and Smothers, the bodyguard, was standing in the hall in silent shock. I walked into the room and into the bathroom and there was Ron in the bathtub in a pool of blood. His blood. He had slit his wrists. He was dead, good and dead. Ron left a suicide note. It said, "Frank, I'm so sorry. I gambled away $10,000 of your money and I couldn't live with myself." 2 hours later, Frank called us all to the lobby to leave. We had to cancel the tour. We were going home. We all got on the bus, devastated and somber, crushed. Frank sat at the very front of the bus by himself, not saying a word to anyone. Terry and Patrick said to me, "Don't bother Frank. Leave Frank alone." Well, of course, the minute they said that, the first thing I did was to go to the front of the bus and check on him. I asked, "Are you all right, Frank?" I'm probably the only one who asked him if he was all right. I said, "It's okay, Frank. Don't worry. We'll recover." No one spoke the whole drive back to LA. It was so terribly sad. At that point, I couldn't imagine being a part of any greater tragedy. Life was going well. I was only in town for 6 months, and I had already recorded Joe's Garage Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4 with Frank Zappa. I had posed for several magazines, including Hustler and We. I had met and dated a few movie stars, and I was living and falling in love with Terry Bozzio. I wasn't yet a movie star myself, but knew that would happen soon enough. I was high as could be. And then I fell out a window.